Hello, everyone watching us through Kaayyoo Media and in satellite television. Today we will have our special English edition program discussing about the socio-political issue of Ethiopia. I had invited for our programs Anders Yegman and then Thomas Amberg from the Swedish Member of Parliament, Social Democratic Party members, which is a leading political party in Swedish, and playing a vital role in African affairs, and they put a lot of articles about the socio-political issue of Ethiopia. Unfortunately, Mr. Anders tied up with other program. He would be joining us our today's discussion, but we will have a discussion with Thomas Hamburg, a social democrat member of parliament, who is a leading political party in Swedish parliament. Along with Dr. Chala Abdisa, who is a human rights defender and an Oromo scholar. Stay tuned with us till the end of our program. In our today's special edition programs, we will discuss about the socio-political issue of Ethiopia, how the European Parliament or the Western perceiving the current situation in Ethiopia, the political prisoners in Ethiopia, and also the lockdown of OLF leadership. All those stuffs will be discussed in our discussion. Again, I would like to invite you to stay until the end of the program. And this program is hosted by Rajiv Gupta. Hello again, our viewers. As I had mentioned it on my introduction part, we will start our English edition special program today on socio-political issue of Ethiopia. As I had mentioned it, unfortunately, Mr. Anders, who had invited on our today's discussion, he tied up with another program and won't be able to do us, but we'll continue with Mr. Thomas and Dr. Chala Abdisa. I would like to thank Mr. Thomas. I know, like, sorry, we had planned this a week ago, and then I know you got a chance to talk to another media outlet too. I really appreciate that one. And then I would like to appreciate also you referred towards the socio-political issue of Ethiopia to reveal the truth, what is going on in the ground. You had seen your article on Swedish Parliament, and then also we've seen on news that you are having an effort to push the situation down there, brought an attention to the foreign affairs too. In behalf of Oromo people, I would like to thank you, because mainly as an Oromos, most of the other people, they don't know what is going on in the ground, and then they perceive us in the wrong way. And quite a few people are making an effort to reveal the truth. So out of those people, you are the one I could mention it. So I would like to thank you before we start jumping to our discussion, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me say first that there is a very strong tradition in my country of sympathy to your country, Ethiopia, and for many years there have been this special relationship. And of course, when we have now got quite a number of reports telling that the situation is not very good for the moment, we felt it was almost an obligation on our side to be in touch and to find out the facts and to establish dialogue. And therefore, we went yesterday. Some leading politicians here, all three in the parliament, one of them the head of the foreign affairs unit there, and myself, who are a member of the constitutional committee, which is also, of course, a very important body in our country. We wanted to propose that there will be a real dialogue between us and the government there, and also that we would have contact with the opposition, of course. This was a first step to demonstrate that we do have very deep concerns about the reports we have about the many arrests, that leaders of political parties are put in prison. And in some cases, they are not even, their friends don't even know where they are. So they seem to be hidden away somehow. Killings have taken place. The security machine has been very active negatively. And many young people, many young people have been arrested and are still not freed after the very unfortunate killing of perhaps your most famous singer. And we followed all this, and we really are concerned.
That's why I just that's why I just said thank you, because many knows the truth, but they don't wanna make their own effort, the diplomatic effort or the power they have on their hand to reveal or to be there for the such people. We'll touch all the stuffs in our discussion. Thank I would like to thank Dr. Chala too to in touch with you and then make this happen too. Thank you, Dr. Chala. Let's jump to our discussion. Before we go too deep, I would like to start from Mr. Thomas. How do you perceive the situation in Ethiopia, broadly the general situation in Ethiopia now, comparing to when Dr. Abiy came to the power for the last 2 years? How do you perceive it? Let's start from there.
In fact, when he was awarded with the Peace Prize in Oslo, which is also a very Swedish concern about who will get the prize, of course we felt that his work to avoid this war with Eritrea was important, and if there will be a lasting peace there, that's of course a real progress. But he did also in his, there's an official speech by the one who gets the prize, and I've studied very carefully what he actually said there about steps that he has introduced, he said, and achievements, talking about full democracy, that people who have been in exile have been allowed to come back, and there was an understanding between the political groupings, freedom of speech was guaranteed, etc. So when we look at the realities we get from various reports, we find there is a difference between what he said 7 months ago and the situation as reported now. And this is really the reason why we felt that there was a need really to take some action. And the action was to invite to a dialogue with the authorities. And we have, of course, some experience. Myself, I've been Secretary General of Amnesty International. I've been the Commissioner for Human Rights in the Council of Europe. So I have some background when it comes to human rights issues and how you change a situation of bad performance by the authorities to real respect for human rights for all people. So this is what I felt was our obligation to do if we are serious about our friendship with Ethiopia.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll get back to you with other details. Dr. Chala, I know that many say that on social media, you just keep opposing Dr. Abiy the day he inaugurated himself to the palace. Do you think you were right, Dr. Chala?
Yeah.
I mean, while the Nobel Prize awarded to him, and then they were impressing him as a peace-building person, but the day he inaugurated, you start opposing this is a cosmetic change. And then do you think you were right when you're comparing the situation in Ethiopia right now?
Yeah, as an Oromo boy who was grown up and born and grown up in that land, I have a lot of experiences, especially with the political situation, not only to the world stage, even to a village stage. There are a lot of cosmetic appearances daily in and daily out. The words you hear from any cadre and a low-level politician, and the act that is going to happen is totally different. I have never seen the words matching with their action. That was the one point. On another side, with the Nobel Prize, I was totally, really at that time, I was very depressed, because on the same night when the Prime Minister arrived in Oslo, maybe Thomas is not aware, or I don't know, One Swedish journalist who right now is living in South Africa. His name is Toby. His full name I don't remember, but I have even contact with him after that. So he had been through crossing a border into Ethiopia, and he had a documentary that was a torture and killings and a lot of things that happened in the southern Omo region in Ethiopia. He has released that video. On the same night, I was watching a video by which Abiy's military used a poison in a school, and then a lot of underage students were in hospitals. They were intoxicated with poisons and so on. So, but he was in Oslo for the inauguration for the Nobel Prize. On another side, my intention at that time was the whole 5 or 4 years, and even if we do not consider the last 30 years, the intense struggle of the people in the last 5 years was not the primary issue was forgotten by the world, because the primary concern of the people was, especially the Oromo, was the internal problem that has to be solved first. The border between Eritrea and Ethiopia was really secondary because it was in a cold war at that time. Previously, it was really in a military war, but later on it has been just in a cold war. So the world even changed the agenda to the issue of Ethiopia and Eritrean peace, ignoring the internal crisis that has led to those intensive 5 or 4 years struggle. Right now, that was what is happening, and that is what reversed all what we hoped for.
Thank you. I just like because I'm one of your Facebook followers, so that's why I'm just putting this point. Like the day he started his inauguration, you've been like putting points as a caution guy. So, Mr. Thomas, I'm just getting back to you. As a constitutional committee member, and then having a vital experience regarding the human rights. You've been in Human Rights Commission too. What is going on in Ethiopia? People say there is a human rights abuse in Ethiopia. That is a very short word. For me, when we say human rights abuse in Ethiopia, it's quite different from what we've seen in the other world. There is extrajudicial killing. There is a mass arrest. Especially after our icon artist Hachalu Hundessa assassinated in capital Finfinnee. The crackdown in the entire country is getting worse. Recently, from yesterday and today in Walaita, the other brotherhood of Oromo, they just questioning the self rule, which is allowed by the constitution. How do you see all those human rights abuse in Ethiopia? Because Abiy were awarded a peace prize due to he released people from the jail, and then also creating a political space, and then the border between Ethiopia and Eritrea. The border is closed back. He jailed more than even more than what he used to. And then the human rights abuse is, and then he said the political space created down there, but all opposition political parties are in jail. How do you say that?
So the problems that you listed now, of course, we have received reports about this, and that's really why we reacted and felt that there was a need for us to spell out our concern. And deep concern about the situation. You cannot keep people in prison without a real good reason. And as soon as possible after you have arrested someone, this person who has been arrested must have a chance to defend himself or herself. That's extremely important. And to hide away people who have been arrested is not acceptable at all. And there is a need after that to have, if there is no release immediately, to a fair procedure which makes it possible for the one who had been apprehended to defend himself or herself. That seems not to be taking place now. So that's a very major violation of human rights. Then, of course, extrajudicial killings are absolutely, without any doubt, there is no discussion about it. It is a very major a negative violation of human rights and must be acted upon, and that's in itself a test on the legal system and the system of justice in the country. And well, those reports we have received, that is the ground for our deep concern about the situation now. And when I compared what has been said in these reports to us with the statement in Oslo about the progress being made according to the Prime Minister, of course there is a contrast. And what we've done is to make clear that that is our feeling, that there is really a need to do something to this. I haven't been, I haven't been in Ethiopia during this period because of the pandemic, and there are some years since I was there. But I feel quite certain that the way we work with reports we get are systematic and professional, and we feel that there is enough of ground for us on the basis of what we have learned to raise this issue directly and publicly.
Yeah, I may jump to the effort you made to reveal that one later on, but before I move to Dr. Chala, I want you to touch it on the point. Like, you got a report which is a tangible or a credential report, and then perceive that it needs an effort to reveal what is going on in Ethiopia. But many other politicians, diplomats, and then even the Western governments, they knew what is going on in Ethiopia, but they don't want to say anything. What do you recommend for the other fellow member of parliament or human rights defenders or anybody who had a concern regarding the right for the nationalities in Ethiopia? How do they just dig out and get information and then be convinced? What is your recommendation? What's the better tool to get those ones?
Thanks to, for instance, organizations like Amnesty International, the reports have come out for some time now, but there was a delay, obviously, when it comes to reporting. And maybe it was just the normal unfortunate situation where people who are involved in human rights monitoring, they have only capacity to cover a few countries, but not every country, and they hadn't really understood that there was a growing serious problem in Ethiopia. But I think it's now coming. Amnesty International reports have been very interesting. And also I see now that the situation is also coming out in the media in some countries. So there will be a further discussion, and the government now really needs to prepare itself, because there will be questions asked from several corners now. So though delayed, I think something is happening now, which hopefully will lead to a possibility of a genuine dialogue with those politicians who are now apprehended and put in prison, some of them hidden away, obviously, that they will be released and they will be treated as leaders of legitimate political parties.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. I'll pass to Dr. Chala. Dr. Chala, as somebody who has inside information in Ethiopia, especially in Oromo, you see, the way I mentioned to Mr. Thomas, we all, the Ethiopians, think that world is not perceiving us in the right way, or they don't have an information from the ground. Do you think we are not doing enough effort to know world what is going on in Ethiopia, or world is just blindfoldedly supporting Dr. Abiy? Which one is the correct way according to your perception?
Oh, thank you. First of all, yeah, the effort that Thomas and other colleagues of him took, because they dared and they became courageous to speak it publicly. This is really, I would like to thank them a lot on the side of all oppressed people of Ethiopia, not only Oromos. But as you said, the voice of the Oromos and other oppressed nations in Ethiopia could not be heard well in the world stage until now. the reason is not only because we didn't done something better or enough, as to me, because sometimes there has to be a willingness to listen to you too. If you have the willingness, for example, no one has came, or we haven't have any rally or demonstration around Thomas or others of his colleagues. We had some demonstrations in Stockholm, in the capital city of Sweden, but we have been repeatedly doing that demonstration. But on his own time, Thomas has done his own investigation. He has followed every information. He has come to reveal and to know the truth, what is the truth on the ground. And now he has decided by his own time to come up and to speak for the truth. So sometimes, it needs this mind that is ready to listen to the truth. Otherwise, for the last 5 or 6 years, continuously in the whole world, especially the Oromos, has been having continuous demonstrations, especially recently after Hachalu's assassination. There is no media outlet, there is no newsletter that has not reported about the Oromo and about the Hachalu's assassination. So in the same manner, if you consider right now, there is no area in the world that haven't heard what is going on in Ethiopia, but it takes, a courage to come up and to say no to injustice. So if you can look at the United States recently, if you see in the Ethiopian embassy around Minnesota, there are Oromo users who had been there fasting with a hunger strike about 9 or 10 days. Now they are staying outside. They had not been to home. So there is only one media who has came to interview them even. So the embassies has totally disrespected them, not even to visit them. So, but here, if you take, for example, later on, Thomas can mention it, So unless the willing heart is there, you cannot do anything. Yeah, but you can do a lot of things. You might not be here. That is what is in my mind. That is what I consider.
I doubted that if we think like we did enough efforts, but there is a less effort doing. And then, but as you mentioned that Mr. Thomas and his fellow member of parliament are an example who was extraordinary moved by themselves and then find out the truth to fight injustice. Mr. Thomas, let's go to the effort you made. I just want to you to touch all those efforts you made to my viewers, so we're gonna know what is happened, and then it would be also the experience for the other fellow member of parliament from the different country to learn about it and work on it. What effort you made? I know that I've seen the articles you jot down on the Swedish parliament. I had an information that you met with Driba Kuma, who is also an ambassador of Ethiopia in Sweden, if I'm right. And then you placed your concern to the foreign affairs. And then we will touch later on. You guys called with Mr. Under to the OLF chairman, Daud Ibsa, and the opposition leader, OFC chairman, Professor Marara Gutina. We'll touch the opposition situation later on, but I want you to touch what efforts you made so far, and then what you will plan to do about it too.
Sorry, could you repeat the last?
Well, what plan you will have to? The effort you made so far, and then also what is the plan way forward you have?
Yeah. When we met yesterday, the ambassador, the Ethiopian ambassador, he in the end promised that he would bring all our points to the Prime Minister. And so we expect that he will have himself to respond. And thereby we have established a dialogue, hopefully. We have also made clear that we will be in touch with the opposition parties, not only with the government, in order to have a fuller picture of the situation. So that's one thing. Precisely what we do will depend on the response that we get, but our principles are very clear, and they're basically to implement human rights and the requirements for real democracy. I mean, if we talk about the election, it was said in Oslo that there will be soon an election. We know that it should have taken place now in coming months, but it has already been postponed. I think that it's important that it's made clear that this postponement cannot be the case for a very long time, because those who stay in power in October, November, December, etc., they are no longer legitimacy in that power position, and that should be a much short time as possible. We have in Europe had a discussion with one government who did the same. He said, because of the pandemic, we will have to delay the election. But the prime minister there said he didn't want to say when. Maybe it's impossible to say a precise date, yes, because of the lack of knowledge about how the pandemic will develop, but there must be a very clear point made that it cannot go on too long. And during this passage from when the present or previous situation is left, that you are no longer legitimately in power, there must be a sort of understanding in the ruling of the country between the sitting people in power and the opposition. So what is a minimum requirement is that after September there is a need for another type of ruling, which means that not only the current government will take all the decisions, there must be another attitude towards sharing power with the opposition. And that is for us a very important principle. Then when it comes also to the election, of course the election board, we have an election board in almost every country, which will see to it that the election is fairly done, free and fair elections. And when we have reports that the composition, the members of the board of this body has been changed, and there is a sort of one-sided membership rather than representing all the different parties, that is also a negative signal. So there are problems already there when it comes to securing that there will be a legitimate government in the future. Then, of course, you come to the very basic human rights matters, freedom of speech. That one has to be very careful about trying to stop journalists, and every arrest of a journalist on the basis of what that journalist has done and written must be questioned. Of course, a journalist could also commit a crime, but the tendency in some countries, and maybe this is a problem here as well, to see legitimate opinions by a journalist in his writing as against the state or something like that, not part of a free discussion. And this is very, very important area to secure that freedom of speech also means freedom of activities by journalists. And there seems to be a problem there as well, according to the reports that we have received.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Dr. Chala, today we're talking about a diplomatic effort. So what would you suggest as an Oromo scholar, Oromos to hear more voices, to get more voices like Mr. Thomas mentioned that? What should we do? We've been doing demonstrations, and then I brought our concerns to area of member of parliaments, and then we've been doing too many stuffs, but I don't think it looks like more fruitful as compared to what is going on in Ethiopia. What should we do regarding that?
Just to continue influencing at least influential persons in a country where you live, it has to continue. On the other side, you know, when you demonstrate and when you try to reveal the truth in that country, there are groups who are organized and who will have a counter protest, you know, Sometimes there could be a confusion to be created even among foreign governments to understand what the reality is there. And there are some groups also who have been established for long, who have been having access to different opportunities. For example, if you take, for example, Sweden, Oromos are less established than other groups who are going counter Oromo and counter other nationalities demonstration, because they had been having a lot of chances for a long period of time. There are a lot of immigrants than Oromos outside in foreign countries. Those have resided for a long period, and those have created a long ties. So they have explained and they have tried to, present the picture of Ethiopia in a wrong way that we are opposing right now. So always, the Ethiopia that most foreign peoples know, whether they are diplomat or officials or citizens, are Ethiopia with one language, or with one color, with one religion, and so on. Totally the same picture which the government in Ethiopia is displaying, it has been displayed to many in foreign lands. So we have to reveal this to foreign officials, diplomats, and human rights, to everybody, because the reality on the ground, unless we accept the reality on the ground, because even for the diplomats and for foreign officials, it is really a loss when you calculate as a child, as a young man. If you ask me, for example, in 1991, there was a big chance for Ethiopia, because at that time there are about 3 dominant opposition groups that went into that country, or 2, I think, TPLF and OLF and the Amaras. There are 3. Even though these are the dominant ethnic groups at the same time, but at that time the TPLF was a composition of the Tigrayan people, which represent at that time 3 million people. But the whole responsibility of the whole nations of Ethiopia, about 80 types of ethnic groups, were given to, it was granted to TPLF to take over everything. That was, again, the biggest loss for Ethiopia as a whole, because until now, the cost that is paid is the miscalculation that happened at that time, the misunderstanding of the real Ethiopian picture at that time. During that time, there was support to TPLF, and then TPLF got all supports and became to have the opportunity to level and to attack and to crush the OLF. But crushing OLF doesn't mean it is not to remove the ideology from the people. So it lasted for the last 30 years. The whole 30 years, the Meles is a non-diplomat, he's a mature leader, but he couldn't handle Ethiopia, unless it is by power, by gun. He did all by gun also, but he couldn't do it, and then he passed away. Then the others also continued. Right now also, if you see the chance that came in 2018, it would have taken the foreign diplomats to learn from the past mistakes and to understand the reality on the ground in Ethiopia. Unless we take into consideration the reality in Ethiopia, especially with nations and nationalities, it's totally just a dream to crush the whole nations and nationalities in Ethiopia and to make it and to forge it into one nation and nationality. That's impossible. That time has gone. It would have happened maybe 150 years back when it was tried as a beginning. But now I don't think everybody wants to have his own identity, and everybody wants to have free them to decide to have a self-determination. And the only way for that country is the self-determination. When we say self-determination, the last 27 years, the TPLF also led with the same constitution. But right now, what we see is just, we rushed and then we gave all the responsibility to Dr. Abiy. And then he couldn't handle it. Even he tried to reverse it back to what is happening in last maybe 50 years or 100 years back. And it's backfiring on the whole situation. So what I wanted to say is from all, not only from the Oromos, but from all Ethiopian nations and nationalities, those who are residing abroad, they have to tell the truth that there are 18 nations and nationalities in Ethiopia. all want us to have equal right in that land. There is no way that we can go back to one nation, one nationality, one language, one culture, and so on. We cannot make one country in that way. So that's the only way that we can make things back to track, I think.
Thank you, Jala. I know, like Mr. Thomas discussed with the other Oromo media outlet about the two ideologies clashing in Ethiopia. I hope everybody aware about it. I don't want to go back to on that one. Mr. Thomas, let's go back to the solution. We just say that what is happening down there, it's better to touch in what is the solution, or as a human rights expert, and then the way forward, the recommendation you're going to make, maybe it's as a VATA role on a way forward. If Abiy continues this way, where the opposition political party members, they crack down on their office and they jail the officials, and then there is a mass killing, not only on Oromos. Recently, even those last 2 days, the people of Walaita, we've seen that under there. Too many videos revealing that where the government source, they're shutting down the Walaita young people, which they question their own constitutional right. We've seen too many Oromo young people, like more than 20,000 jailed in a camp, in a military camp. If this situation continues, what is the fate of Ethiopia?
You know, the worst scenario would be that the country is split up, and that there would be that Ethiopia wouldn't exist any longer. But when you talk about the way that the country is organized and division of power, etc., the only advice we can give is that the experience we have is that it's absolutely necessary that there is an understanding between all the different groups, different peoples within the country. If that is not there, the risk is that there will be clashes and confrontations. Human rights violations would easily come in that situation, unfortunately, and maybe a split up of the country as a whole. So there seems to be very much at stake in the present situation. And I think people around the world who know a bit about Ethiopia, there are many who don't know much actually, but some people really know a bit about it. We would be extremely sad if there was a breakdown of the country completely. And the only way to combat that, to create a situation where this doesn't happen, is an understanding. And this would require, first of all, that the human rights violations would end. And there was a back out from throwing political leaders in prison and all the other things we have discussed. A real democracy doesn't function without human rights. It doesn't. And then I think it is to the government to invite the opposition groups for a real dialogue, and there should be a real dialogue, not only a lecture to them, but they should have a chance to influence. And as I said, in particular after September, when the government doesn't have a legitimate, legitimate power, there is absolutely a need for a better, should be a dialogue between different political groups. Otherwise there would be problems, we feel. But that's our assessment. We may be wrong, but I think we have some basis for our considerations.
Many say that, many agree on what you mentioned, but here as an expert, like what would you suggest? Like many say that the government has to sit down on the table and broad a genuine dialogue with oppositions and form a transitional government. And then the other side said, whatever situation gonna encounter, the government has to go for election. So which one do you think is better?
I think both are needed, frankly. First of all, I think really, now I'm based on experience from some other countries where I worked, there is a need for those in power to demonstrate that they are serious about the dialogue. And that can only, I think, happen if they release political prisoners and if they put security people, police, militaries who have committed human rights violations to task. They must be corrected. And in this situation, these are people who perhaps should be in prison, but not those who have voiced their opinions. So I think there is a need of some steps in order to secure human rights, in order to create a confidence among everyone that now the government is serious. Now it really wants to discuss, and they're open for our views as well. But that time should come sooner or later in our experience when it comes to these kinds of problems. And the election, of course, is key there. One can't wait too long.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Dr. Jala, the same question I raised for Mr. Thomas, like, what is your suggestion? Like, what's the fate of Ethiopia if Dr. Abiy continues this way? Do you suggest that the opposition should come to the table with a genuine dialogue with the government to form a transitional government, which many recommended in 2018? It would have solved all those issues if the opposition came to get a power or share a power with the government. Colin Abiy would not get a chance to create a dictatorial environment. Or many say to, like, despite this pandemic, let Ethiopia go for election. Which one would you suggest?
Thank you. For a dialogue is good, but on my side, to suggest a dialogue, you know, one thing, maybe some of you most people are optimistic, but on my side, when it comes to about Ethiopian politics, I am on pessimist. You know, as far as the government in Ethiopia is having the security apparatus in his hand and the legal apparatus in his hand, whatever dialogue you do, they can say, okay. Especially when it comes to the world state, no one will be democratic like them in talking. But when it gets back to the real ground, the situation will immediately change. So this has been a trend in Ethiopia for long. And as to me, it's good to try to push again to the dialogue. But when a dialogue is being held, the most important thing is after September 30, as Mr. Thomas said, clearly there is no legitimate government in Ethiopia. As far as there will be no legitimate government in Ethiopia, the reality that has to happen in that country is the constitution has to be in place. No one has to reshuffle or change or touch the constitution. If that is going to happen, that will be an end to the point that Thomas mentioned, the last point for Ethiopia to exist. So as far the constitution is there, there has to be some power that has to keep the constitution. Otherwise, the real solution for that country is free and a fair and a democratic election. That's the only way out for Ethiopia. That's the only way out for a democracy to come to Ethiopia. So that is what is a take-home message from me to the world diplomat or any nation who is concerned to have a positive impact in Ethiopian politics.
Thanks, Dr. Chala. Before wrapping up our discussion, Mr. Thomas, I want you to touch it about the opposition leaders, OLF and OFC. I know I had an information that you talked to the chairman of OLF, Mr. Daud. Especially like the OLF is the most known political party with most representing the entire half of the empire, the Oromo people, and many said they would have been the solution for the Horn of Africa if they came to power. But the situation, the crackdown after the assassination of our icon Hachalu Hundessa, and before too, the most victim were the OLF and its officials. There is a betrayal, the blackmailing of OLF. Recently, even they locked down the head office and then the chairman, Mr. Daud, is in house arrest. The situation is remain uncertain still now. The same issues happening to OFC too, Oromo Federal Congress. These officials like Juar and Bakale, they were jailed. Dr. Mera is not moving that much to the same as chairperson for the Daud IPSA. What do you think of this situation? And then within our discussion, if we miss anything, I just want to give you a chance to wrap up I just want you to wrap up with the word is what you want to mention.
What you mentioned, we have got similar information, we have discussed this, and of course this is an area where we have also informed our foreign minister about the seriousness about the fact that political leaders have been put in prison. They should be respected. There should be a dialogue with the government people and not being put in prison. So it's a very serious step to take to go for arrest and whatever has happened to them afterwards as well. They should be released, and they should be, if we don't have any information to that effect, but if any one of them have committed a crime, still that person, if he or she exists, should have the chance to defend himself. So whatever is the conclusion from the governmental side on this, they are wrong. They are wrong now. They have really to take this very seriously, because this touches not only human rights but also democracy as a whole. So it's serious. It's serious. And we have begun to name people that we know have been either put in prison, and we have also, as I said, heard that some of them are, we don't know where they are, and also that some have been put in house arrest, which is also a form of punishment, and must be justified if it takes place. So this is, of course, a very important part of the situation.
Thanks, Mr. Thomas. Chala, Dr. Chala, I'm just, what would you say about the mass arrest, the jailing of political leaders, especially like the betrayal of the OLF leaders? What do you say about that?
Yeah, concerning the OLF and the OFC leaders, especially they are majority having some majority support in Oromia. Oromia is really the battleground now for the Dr. Abiy's politics. So as far it is really a battleground, there has to be a solution in that area, especially. There has to be a big attention to that area. So concerning OLF, they have arrested almost, the attack on OLF and cracking on OLF started not recently. Immediately, as soon as OLF returned back home, that was a beginning of Abiy's manifestation totally, that he has lost his promise totally. So since then, OLF has no days that his members or supporters has been free. Daily there is incarceration and imprisonment and tortures and so on, even killings. So with concerning OFC also the same thing. Recently, especially after Ajalu, prominent leaders like Bakala Garba and Juar are also imprisoned without any reason. So especially if Abiy is wise enough, and also other diplomats has to also consider the mature leaders like Professor Marara Gudina of AFC and Mr. Daud of oil, because these people have been through long journey in Ethiopian politics. Maybe they have been through 3 or 4 regimes. They have fought all, and they have seen what the cause or what the result of war is. They know, and what the result or the benefit of peace is. They know it well. They are not emotional. They know everything. They are calm and they are ready for peaceful dialogues. Always they suggest it, they beg it, but no one has listened to them. There is no ear to listen to them. So in that case, I don't know whether you put them under house arrest or whether you assassinate them. You do not do anything good for that country. So this has to be a critical message to the Ethiopian government. So it's time that they have to come to the table. Maybe you can consider Tigray right now. It's encircled, but no one is touching any member of TPLF because they are all, you know, they are armed. The only reason why Oromia is battleground is because they are not armed. One day, if Oromia is also going to be fully armed, totally what's going to happen in that country? This can be just anybody can predict it, you know. So I think as to me, there is a few miles remaining for Ethiopia to end up in an irreversible ethnic clash and maybe, I don't know, civil war, and which will not have an end. So we might talk as a simple stage or a simple interview today, but unless it is acted on in time, the result might be really regrettable to all of us. So especially I beg the international community and foreign governments and people like Thomas and others, even those who are residing, why not in Canada and America, like where you are, Raji. So everybody has to be, especially the international media also has to support this thing, because this is a critical time for Ethiopia especially. It's a turning point as to me. Thank you.
Thanks having you both, Mr. Thomas and Dr. Chala, in our today's discussion. And then I would like to thank Mr. Thomas. Keep doing, I'm really impressed when you referred, because many knows what is going on in Ethiopia and the blindfoldly supporting the authority of Mr. Abiy's government. Stay tuned with us, and then we'll keep in touch, and we may have another program to regarding this the situation from in Ethiopia. And then all our viewers watching us through ONN, satellite television, and Kaayyoo Media, we're gonna wrap up our discussion for today here, and stay tuned with